In the roaring flames, my fiancé the movie star rescued his first love. I huddled in the corner, silent, letting the blood flow unchecked from beneath me. It was only because, in my past life, I cried out his name in panic. He hesitated, then saved me obscenity. While his first love, caught in the fire, was burned beyond recognition later. I learned the reason the movie star had joined this variety show was for her. He lulled me with a passionate "S all your fault," he'd raged. If you hadn't threatened me with the child in your belly to make me save you, Julia would never have been hurt. You owe Julia, you'll pay with your life. So I was dragged to the hospital by Michael, every unmarred patch of skin on my body grafted onto Julia, and I died in agony from infection when I opened my eyes again. I stared at the sea of flames, smiled faintly, and let the fire consume me. Sparks showered from collapsing iron frames. The fire spread across this floor, where stacks of cardboard boxes cluttered the room. Julia and I were trapped on the balcony. The towering flames before us were terrifying, deterring even a single step forward. I curled up as far from the fire as possible, my hair matted to my skin by the sweltering heat. Utterly disheveled not far away. The camera faithfully recorded every second, beaming it live to the stream. Oh my God, isn't this a fire safety variety show? How did it actually catch fire? Wasn't it just Julia and Mary on this floor? Where's Michael? Your wife's about to burn. Are you nuts? Putting out fires is the firefighter's job. Our Michael's face is worth a fortune. Even a burned finger would be a huge loss. The comments flew fast and furious across the stream. Then, from the stairwell, Michael's voice rang out, "Is anyone there? Speak up." That figure, usually so aloof, his clothes never a wrinkle out of place, stumbled through the smoke-choked stairs, disheveled. The stream viewers were stunned. Holy cow, Michael came despite this inferno. I'm crying. Our Michael's a total clean freak. He once walked out of an award show mid-ceremony just to change because his sleeve got dirty. Fine, I accept Mary as sister-in-law. It must be true love. The next second, Michael looked up, and through the flames, he saw Julia and me. Julia's lips curved in a faint, knowing smile. Mary. She murmured, "Who do you think, Michael will save, you or me?" I said nothing. Because in my past life, after Michael saved pregnant me, Julia had been forced to jump from the window, her fingers broken. Her body burned so badly she'd never play the piano again. Michael had hated me for it. He dragged me, pregnant as I was, to the operating table to give Julia my skin. I'd lost the baby to infection, and then my own life reborn. I wouldn't let Michael save me this time. I shoved Julia forward. She, catching on, she looked up with a pitiful and called out, "Michael, I'm so scared." In the next instant, the man who'd just announced our engagement on the show, Michael, his eyes red, his voice hoarse, shouted another woman's name. "Julia, Julia, are you okay? Don't scare me." The desperation in his voice practically cut through the screen, piercing his fans' hearts. I watched indifferently as my husband and another woman staged a Titanic-worthy scene for the camera. Not a flicker of emotion stirred in me. You two are so in love, it only makes my past self look like a fool for intruding. Wait. Did Michael just say Julia? How laughable. Mary just said she and Michael had a 10-year secret relationship and were madly in love. Talk about a slap in the face. Is this part of the show? Only I knew it wasn't. In my past life, the fire had started because of a crew member's mistake. Julia and I hadn't been far apart. Crash. A smoldering piece of wood fell from the ceiling, slamming into my shoulder. I trembled violently in agony, an involuntary whimper escaping me. Michael finally tore his gaze from Julia. Scowling, "Mary, you're just afraid I'll save Julia, so you're faking this injury to play the victim, aren't you?" I looked into his eyes filled with what seemed like pure loathing and felt a bitter absurdity. This man I'd shared a bed with 4 years thought so little of me. From below, a crew member shouted, "Michael, the fire's too big, get down now." My face turned deathly pale. I felt warmth seep between my legs. The baby in my belly was protesting. If I didn't call out to Michael, we'd lose it. In my past life, I'd begged early enough. Even then, it took 2 weeks in the hospital to save the baby. But now, I didn't want this child anymore. Once, I thought a baby with Michael would bind his heart to mine. The stream viewers held their breath, waiting for Michael's choice. Julia glanced at me, bit her lip, and urged, "Michael, you should save Mary." She told me her ankle's sprained. Michael shot me a disgusted look. Mary, you've always been so scheming. You've stole and who knows how much from Julia. You're using this lie to steal Julia's chance to live? Aren't you ashamed? His venomous words should have hurt, but I felt nothing. This must be what it means to have a dead heart. No more expectations. Instead, a wave of melancholy washed over Mayho. Mary, Mary, you've chased this man for half your life, and this is how he sees you. As some venomous fiend. I cast a weary glance at Michael and Julia, who stood beside him wearing that triumphant smirk. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for my next move. I knew exactly what Julia was after. She wanted to see me crumble, to watch me suffer. It had always been this way. She loved framing me in front of Michael, waiting for him to leap to her defense, and then she'd flash that smug smile when she saw how wronged yet still infatuated I looked under his reproach. Without so much as a backward glance, I leaned back and plummeted into the chaos of screams below. Fifth floor, not the tallest. But with the way I'd positioned myself, it should have been fatal, but I wasn't that foolish. I remembered from my past life that by this exact moment, the firefighters had just laid out their airbag, timing it perfectly. I hit the inflatable cushion. The immense bounce absorbed most of the impact, but when I tumbled off onto the ground, the burning pain of my body hitting the concrete woke me up instantly. My limbs bent at grotesque tangles, and between my legs, a warm rush of blood signaled the end. The baby couldn't hold on any longer. Through the agony, my vision remained eerily clear from the fifth-floor balcony. I watched Michael cradle Julia in his arms, moving with cautious tenderness as he carried her away from the flames. A laugh escaped me, hollow and bitter. "Aye, doctor, aye, doctor." His face etched with urgency, knelt beside me. "Are you all right?" My voice came out flat, almost detached. "Good news for all the Michael and Julia shippers out there." In the operating room, the doctors looked at me with a rare sense of helplessness. Blood still seeped from between my legs, and my body was a patchwork of wounds needing immediate surgery. The lead doctor hesitated, then stepped out. Waiting outside was James, our childhood friend. "Are you a family member?" the doctor asked. His tone died with urgency. "The patient is pregnant, but her injuries are critical. If we operate, the baby won't survive. Frankly, even without surgery, the baby can't be saved given her condition. But we still need a signature for the consent form." James let out a furious curse. "Fuck." He pulled out his phone and dialed Michael. "Michael, where the hell are you?" On the other end, Michael's voice was soft, almost tender. "Julia, does it hurt?" Julia's reply was shy, simpering. "Just a scratchy." "Ray, the only one making a big deal out of it." James's temper flared. "Michael, are you even human? Your wife is in the emergency room fighting for her life, and you're cooing at another woman?" Michael scoffed. "James, you're at it again, helping Mary pull this shit. And Julia? She's not another woman. We grew up together, all four of us. You know how important her hands are to her. Her dream is to be the greatest pianist in the world." James ran a hand over his face, exhausted. "Fine, you don't care about Mary, but what about your child? Mary's pregnant. She's in surgery right now, and we need your signature to proceed. The baby won't make it." Michael laughed. A cold, mocking sound. "James, keep this up. And we're no longer friends. Did Mary forget to tell you? We always use protection even if she is pregnant. That kid isn't mine." His voice dripped with malice. "Though who knows, maybe it's yours." James, staring at the doctor's increasingly anxious expression, erupted. "Michael, you're a fucking monster. Mary was blind to love you all these years. She gave up dancing to save you, for God's sake." Michael's voice turned icy. "Done?" he asked. "Good. I'm hanging up. I need to change Julia's bandages." The line went dead. James cursed again, then turned to the doctor, rubbing his hands together. "I'll sign." The doctor looked skeptical. "Are you her family?" "Her parents died when she was little," James said. "She grew up in my house. I'm her brother." In the recovery room, I felt that tiny life inside me fade away, and an odd sense of relief washed over me. As if a chain that had bound me for years had finally snapped while I was in surgery. The internet erupted. "Look, I hate Mary, but isn't Michael going too far here? Seriously, saving the homewrecker instead of his own wife?" My heart broke when Mary jumped. When Julia saw the comments, she sat in the hospital corridor, sobbing pitifully. "Michael, it's all my fault. Everyone's misunderstanding you. I should have just died in that fire." Michael's eyes were dark with anger. He called James, barking orders. "Put Mary on the phone." James rolled his eyes. Are you nuts? I told you she's in surgery. Michael's voice turned cold, sharp enough to make one shiver. Surgery? If she's in surgery, who's spreading all this crap online? Tell her it's her she's trying to cancel, Julia, and tell her we're getting a divorce. That was the first thing I heard when they wheeled me out of the operating room. James instinctively covered the phone, his face tight with worry. Mary. I met his gaze calmly. I heard. I'd been through this so many times, it barely registered as strange anymore. I'd loved Michael since we were kids, and for him, I'd endured more than my share of heartache. Michael had always been in love with Julia. In fact, they were the first to start dating, but after just 2 months, Julia grew bored. She thought Michael had no money, so she came to me, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Hey, Mary, want the cast-off I'm done with? I seethed at how she'd referred to Michael. Michael is not some cast-off. Julia rolled her eyes. Suit yourself either way, I'm tired of him. I was just looking for an excuse to break up. I slipped something in his drink. If you don't go to him, he'll sleep with someone else. And that'll be that. I knew how unseemly, how degrading this was, but I glanced at Julia. Then went to find Michael drugged, delirious. I pressed my lips to his cheek. And that's how it happened between us. When Michael came to his senses, Julia was at the hotel door, her face twisted with hurt. Michael, how could you betray me? It's over. And just like that, Michael ended up with me, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. But he hated me. He thought I'd drugged him, forced him into infidelity, ruined things with Julia. No matter how many times I explained, he only grew angrier. He believed Julia, and only Julia. Michael let out a cold laugh, phone in hand. As he rounded the corner, he nearly collided with me, being wheeled to my ward by the doctor. The doctor spoke gently. Mary, right? You've just miscarried. You'll need plenty of nutrients these days. It's best if a family member takes good care of you. James nodded vigorously beside me. Michael froze for some reason. A surge of anger bubbled up inside him. And Biden, Mary, you slut. How dare you betray me like this? James lost his temper, throwing a punch at Michael. What the hell is wrong with you? Get help. How could you say something like that to her? Mary loves you so much. The doctor continued. You didn't even know you were 4 months pregnant. And you went on such a dangerous variety show? Do you realize you'll never be able to have children now? Michael was stunned by James's blow. But he stood rooted to the spot, muttering, 4 months. I closed my eyes, refusing to look at him. 4 months ago, Michael had come home drunk, climbed on top of me, and called me Julia as we made love that night. He hadn't used protection. Michael took 2 uneasy steps forward, forcing a calm expression. Mary, were you pregnant? Why didn't you tell me? A bitter, mocking smile tugged at my lips. Didn't I? In my past life, I had. I'd screamed his name in panic amid the flames. Michael, I'm pregnant. Save me, save our baby. Michael had stood before me, glancing back at the window to confirm firefighters had set up an airbag, ensuring Julia would be safe before finally striding through the fire to lift me up and carry me out. But no one could have predicted what happened next. Julia watched Michael carry me away, her lips clamped tight no matter how much the firefighters shouted from below. She refused to jump. Until the flame swallowed her. Michael, who'd just set me down, looked up. He froze, his breath catching without a second glance at me. He turned and charged back into the building. Firefighters tried to stop him. Mr. Michael, the fire's too intense. Our crew is already inside. Please stay back. You're not trained for this. Michael's eyes were red as he glared down at the firefighter blocking his path. His voice was hoarse. If I don't go, Julia will be angry. He stumbled forward. As if in a daze. She won't jump. She must be mad at me. It's all my fault. I always make her angry. That's why she leaves me, over and over. A line of firefighters barred his way, refusing to let him pass. When he couldn't get through, Michael stood rigidly below, waiting. And when Julia was finally carried out, her body charred beyond recognition, he followed close behind, never leaving her side. He'd long forgotten about me. Julia and I were taken to the hospital together. Doctors fought to save my baby. And by some miracle, they succeeded. I lay alone in that hospital for a month before Michael burst in his first words. If it weren't for you, Julia wouldn't be this badly burned. My hand rested on my swollen belly. Michael's gaze slid over it coldly, as if our child meant nothing to him. Mary, you and that bastard in your womb deserve to die. With that, he had me transferred to a private hospital owned by the Percy S. Where they took my skin to graft onto Julia. In the end, neither I nor the baby survived. My hand trembled slightly as it rested on my stomach now. I felt no regret over losing this child, better never to be born at all than to enter a world where their own father hated them. I spoke calmly. What good would it have done to tell you? I met Michael's eyes directly. If I had told you, would you have saved me? He froze under my stare. As if I were prying his very soul open. Michael looked away, as if fleeing from something. If I'd known. If I'd only known. He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. If I'd known, I would have saved you and the baby. I knew the last embers of warmth in my heart. Warmth that had once beaten for Michael flickered and died. I closed my eyes, exhausted. Leave we Ray getting a divorce. James gave me an approving look, as if he'd been waiting ages to hear those words. He walked beside my bed, shooting Michael a withering glance. Let's go. Michael stood there, watching as I was wheeled away, his tall frame hunched slightly, his back looking, strangely enough, like that of a lost, helpless child. I spent the next week recovering in the hospital, but the online storm surrounding Michael, Julia, and me, sparked by that variety show incident, only grew more intense. Especially since the live stream equipment hadn't cut off that day. Footage of Michael choosing Julia amid the flames, and of me leaping from the building, was being dissected frame by netizens. Normally I bash Mary, but I actually feel bad for her this time. Didn't she just announce she was pregnant on the show? Who knew Julia, with that icy pianist vibe, was secretly stealing someone else's husband? I'm sorry, Michael, I'm a fan. But you really messed up here. Reading those comments, the tightness in my lip slowly eased when I chased Michael into the entertainment industry. His vague, half-hearted acts of care had painted me as nothing but a Nepo baby in everyone's eyes. To his fans, I was a schemer leveraging my family to force his hand. I'd been dragged through the mud since day one, and I thought I'd built a thick skin, but seeing the tide turn, no more insults. I let out a quiet, relieved breath. James sliced an apple and handed it to me, a pamper smile on his face. Told you no one likes being hated. You happy to see the nice comments? I nodded softly. Ever since I'd been reborn, the weight of my past life had hung over me like a dark cloud, leaving me perpetually gloomy. James did his best to cheer me up. Mary, you're not your usual tough self. Someone hurt you, huh? Was it Michael? Want me to expose him? I knew he meant well, so I didn't take offense. A faint smile flickered in my eyes. How would you expose him? He's an A-list actor, and you're just a firefighter. His millions of fans would drown you in hate till you're depressed. We were joking when James's phone rang. He lifted his chin, cocky as ever. Please. Mike, that had happened. He glanced at the caller ID, and his brow furrowed. He was terrible at hiding his feelings. I knew instantly it was Michael. I nudged him with a laugh. Not gonna answer. James started to shut the phone. Why bother? Let's keep talking. I laughed and chided him. Are you a kid? We all grew up together. No need to ruin your friendship over me. If Michael's mom goes complaining to Mrs. Montague, you'll be the one in trouble. Reluctantly, James answered, flipping on the speaker. He mouthed to me, watch this jerk show his true colors. Michael's voice, tired and strained, came through the line. James, where are you, James? Half expecting Michael to sound remorseful over me, winced slightly. Should NT have turned on speaker, he mouthed. I met his gaze, silently thinking, you really think so? Michael's next words proved me right. James, I remember you have a video on your computer. James froze. Which one? Michael's voice was calm, but firm, as if he had no doubt. The one where Julia carried me out of the fire. James panicked, shooting me a glance. He moved to turn off the speaker and head for the door, but I caught his sleeve. My voice was soft, steady. It's okay, talk here. I was immune now. No more wounds left for Michael to hurt. James stopped, sitting on the edge of the bed. His warm fingers wrapped around mine. I tensed, wanting to pull away, but his grip held firm. A strange feeling stirring for the first time, I noticed how warm his hands were. We'd grown up together. But in my mind, James had always been that carefree, laid-back guy who never seemed to take anything seriously, yet he'd always spoken up for me. Every time Michael or Julia left me hurting, James was there. This time felt different. James's voice was cool, Steady, Michael, the one who pulled you out of that fire wasn't Julia, it was Mary. The video was shot from far away, you must have mixed them up. There was a hint of disdain in his tone. Julia? She'd never run into a fire to save you, only a fool like Mary. Michael cut him off sharply. That's impossible. His voice dripped with disbelief. James, I get you've always taken Mary's side, but this is ridiculous. You can't even tell right from wrong. That person in the video was obviously Julia. I asked her, and she admitted it. James's grip on my hand tightened, irritation flashed across his face, but before he could speak, Michael barraged on James. This is serious, can't you act normal for once? The whole internet's staring Julia apart, you know that. James scoffed. Yeah, I know, and they're right too. Michael, finally the gods are opening their eyes, your fans are seeing what you and Julia really are good for them. Michael's voice dropped, turning cold and hard. Are you crazy? Don't you know how badly Julia wants to be a pianist? Her reputation's ruined, and what's she supposed to do now? James, even if you're Team Mary, you can't throw decency out the window. Frost laced James's voice as anger simmered beneath it. Michael, have you forgotten who you are? Do you even remember Mary's your fiancée? She lost your child because of you, she can never have kids again, do you get that? Michael fell silent after a long pause. He said, I know. It is what it is. I'll make it up to Mary later, but Julia's different. James snapped. Michael, you're obsessed. If you're so in love with Julia, why chain Mary to you? Julia can't take a little criticism, but Mary's fair game. Have you forgotten everything Mary's done for you? I watched James seethe on my behalf. But Michael's words left no mark on my heart. Hate only comes from love, and now, thinking of Michael, I felt nothing but strangers. I squeezed James's hand and comforted us. Okay. I don't care anymore. James turned to look at me, and to my surprise, there was a flicker of hurt in his eyes. But I care. Michael, hearing my voice over the line, scoffed. So that's why you're being stubborn. You two have been sneaking around all along. James, you'll take whatever scraps I toss aside? To anyone unaware, it would sound like I wronged Michael deeply, feeling his hatred. James sneered. Shut your filthy mouth. Michael, if you can't speak like a human, don't speak at all. You want to know who really saved you? Fine. I'll send you the full video. We'll see if you've got an ounce of conscience left, you bastard. With that, James pulled up the old video on his phone and sent it to Michael. As I stared at the grainy footage, memories flooded back to 10 years ago. Back then, Michael only had a soft spot for Julia, always protecting her, but Julia had her eye on a promising young only in spirit, a full decade older than us, to chase him. Julia dragged the three of us into sneaking over the ballroom's back wall. That night, a candelabra toppled, and fire erupted in the hall. James and I tried to pull Michael out. But he refused, frantic that Julia might be in danger. He ran into the flames alone. Michael never found Julia. Not even before he passed out, because she'd already fled with the man she liked. Elliot was the one hosting the ball. James and I wanted to call the police, but Julia and Elliot stopped us. Elliot claimed he was still breaking into the high business scene and couldn't afford the scandal. I looked into Julia's silent eyes. It down hard, and ran back into the fire. I carried Michael out on my back. It became our shared secret. All four of us had skipped class to be there later. The three families used the incident to strongroom Elliot into handing over 3 of his most promising projects as compensation. Julia's mother came to me, her voice cold and flat. Mary, you're just the Montagus ward. I trust you know what should stay, and said. Unlike the others, I had no family left to stand up for me, so that night's truth stayed buried except for the 2 videos James kept. The video cut to James's urgent voice, Mary. I looked up at James, my gaze drifting past the screen to the 28-year-old Michael. I wondered what he'd feel watching this, but all I said was, James, I'm hot. But James didn't let go. He leaned down, his lashes nearly brushing my face. A faint flush crept up my cheeks. I thought my heart had died with my love for Michael, yet James's gaze made my pulse quicken, and in confusion and unease swirled in my eyes. James read my thoughts. She bent down and hugged me. Mary, look back. I've always been here. The next second, Michael kicked the door open, yanking James away. His brows furrowed in fury. James, how long have you been lusting after Mary? James's lips curled in a provocation. Long enough. I've had my eye on her since we were kids. Not like you, spineless. Greedy, a little prince coddled by your mother, you cling to everything but do nothing right. Michael swung a fist. But James didn't back down. They grappled instantly. I sat on the hospital bed, watching impassively. That the flutter James had stirred in my chest lingered. Michael must have been in the hallway when he called James, listening in on our conversation until he couldn't contain himself. The fight didn't last long before Julia appeared in the doorway. Her gaze on me was dark, but her voice turned soft and pleading. Michael, stop. You'll get hurt. Her voice jolted Michael back to his sense. She straightened, dabbing at the blood on his lip with the back of his hand. A pretty boy who'd only trained in gyms and acted on sets stood no chance against James. James leaned against the wall behind him, chin lifted. Well, what brings this pair bitch and hound to our door? Michael's face was livid as he turned to me. Mary, I was going to thank you for saving me, but then you had to run off with someone like James. Whose child was it, anyway? Mine or his? I sneered. James's. Happy now, but the answer irked him. He took a step toward me. A jealousy in his eyes. He didn't understand. You said you loved me, Mary. You're such a hypocrite. I replied flatly. It shut him up cold. Julia looked at me, her eyes glinting with coldness, but her words dripped with sweetness and concern. Michael and I just came to check on you. I humored her with a half-hearted reply. Hypocritical. Julia was 1,000 times more hypocritical than I'd ever been. Michael's voice turned frosty. Julia is talking to you. Mary. I lifted my head, my tone colder than as one might think the president himself was addressing me. Michael, how many ways do I need to say it for you to get it? I'm disgusted by you. Michael's face registered pure disbelief. You find me disgusting? I tugged at the corner of my lip. Disgusting doesn't even cover it. If I weren't stuck in this bed, I'd march right down to get a divorce this second. Head over your wife's spot to your dream girl, your white moonbeam. Julia. Michael's gaze bore into me. What's that supposed to mean? You think our marriage certificate is in your way, getting in the way of you and James? Mary. You're an orphan with no family. Only I'd put up with the hassle of being with you. You think the Aga's door is that easy to walk through? James cut in. What kind of nonsense is that? Mary, don't listen to him. The Perseus are just being snobs with their stupid class nonsense. The Aga's door is always open for you. Hell, you grew up in our house. You know what my mom's like. She's known I liked you for ages. James's words hit me like a jolt. How could he say something like that so casually? I hadn't even sorted things out with Michael yet. I had no energy for this. Thankfully, Julia stepped in, smoothly diffusing the chaos. Mary, Michael and I actually came to ask you a favor. Her arm looped through Michael's, making them look like a pair of newlyweds madly in love. Julia's eyes held a flicker of apology. Mary, on the variety show I don't know why you reacted so strongly. But now everyone's attacking me online. Her tone carried a faint undercurrent of blame. Michael remembered their real reason for coming. I plan to post that video online. I'll tell everyone I saved Julia because she was my savior once, so her future isn't ruined. She still wants to play piano. Her reputation can't take this. I cut him off coldly before he finished. Nebo. Michael looked baffled. Why can't you think of Julia for once? Sarcasm laced my voice. Aren't you doing enough thinking for both of us? She wants to play piano. Am I just supposed to quit the industry? Michael's eyes lit up in realization. Are you threatening me? I frowned, confused. How had that turned into a threat? Michael pressed on. We were married, you know. Even if you quit the industry, I'll take care of you. Just cooperate. Issue a statement saying you slipped and fell. Nothing to do with Julia. I studied him, genuinely wondering if his brain was as smooth as a polished stone. I let out a soft laugh. Get out. James wasted no time, shoving Michael and Julia toward the door. Both of you. Get out. On Mary's behalf, I'm cutting ties with you to scram. Mal. After slamming the door, James turned to me, his gaze darting awkwardly. I stayed silent, pointedly ignoring his earlier confession. I forced a casual tone. I think I can be discharged tomorrow. James matched my casualness. I'll take you home. The next day, James and I ran into a mob of reporters in the hospital parking lot. They thrust microphones practically into my mouth. Mary, what do you make of Michael's post today? Julia says you're the homewrecker who stole Michael from her. Tricking him into marriage. Do you admit it? So did Julia really save Michael back then? From their rapid-fire questions, I pieced together what had happened even though I'd refused to help. Michael had posted that old video of me saving him chopped up and edited. To claim Julia was his rescuer, and Julia, in an interview, painted herself as Michael's first love, whose true romance had been destroyed by my meddling overnight. The tide turned. Julia went from a universally scorned homewrecker to a wronged, enduring first love. I, once the victim, became a scheming seductress. I stood there, facing the cameras. I'd known Michael didn't love me, but never in a million years did I think he'd go this far. After I'd lost our child because of him, he still wanted to use me as a stepping stone for his white moonbeam. I wouldn't let that happen. I'd come prepared. James stepped protectively in front of me. I spoke in a steady, clear voice. None of this is true. I pointed to the camera in a reporter's hand. Is this a live broadcast? The reporter froze, obviously didn't expect me to ask that. Then nodded. I pulled out my phone from my bag and played a recording. Mary, Michael and I actually came to ask you a favor. Julia's voice filled the air. Even James looked back in surprise. He hadn't known I'd recorded yesterday's conversation. I smiled bitterly inside. Had I really looked that easy to push around? But that wasn't the only recording. I also had the one from back then, when Julia had found me sneering that Michael was a cast-off she'd grown tired of. I kept it buried in my phone, never planning to share it back then. I'd worried it would hurt Michael. I'd rather endure his coldness than see him upset, but now I couldn't care less if Michael hurt or grieved. I started with that old fire, sharing one story at a time, posting evidence to my account as I went. The live stream chat exploded. Casual viewers, Michael's fans, the show's followers, even my own haters. They flooded the feed, nearly crashing the stream. Holy crap. Mary was the one who saved Michael back then. Michael and Julia had the gall to take credit for what she did. Those shameless bastards. Julia looks so gentle on the surface, but she's really like this? Disgusting. Jesus. How much crap has Mary taken all these years? My idealized image of Michael is shattered. He's just a conceited, idiotic scumbag, hiding behind his pretty face to do whatever he wants. Unfollowing one. Meanwhile, Michael and Julia, watching the stream, squirmed in their seats. They'd just been celebrating Julia's clean reputation. Now, that joy fizzled fast. Michael saw me on the stream, initially irate, reaching for his phone to call, but as I posted more and more, he fell silent, especially when that clip of Julia's sneer played. Hey, Mary. Want the cast-off I've worn out? Michael's hand clamped down on the armrest, like he might snap it, into his eyes reddened. Brimming with betrayed hurt and rage, he turned to stare at Julia, saying not a word. Julia panicked, forcing a laugh at us. Fake. Michael, you know Mary's always loved framing me. How could that be? I love you so much. Under Michael's gaze, her voice fizzled out, shrinking to a near whisper. Michael stood, kicking over the table in front of him with a thunderous crash. Julia, he said, his voice as cold as ice, I underestimated you. Julia scrambled to hold him back, but Michael shoved her away forcefully. It was the first time in all these years he'd shown such unwavering cruelty to her. Julia panicked. She'd come back to Michael only because she had no better options. Online chaos erupted after James dropped me home. Sharp-eyed netizens dug up Julia's dirt. Who even is Julia the pianist? Back in high school, she was a little thug dating gangsters. The ballroom fire? She started it. Then framed Elliot. Elliot was a greater neat talent, just starting his company, and the Windsors crushed him till he had to flee to America. Julia chased him there, bullied people on campus, even dabbled in drugs for inspiration. When she flamed out abroad, the Windsors dragged her back, afraid she'd die overseas. Then she saw Michael was a big star and latched onto her old doormat. Mary and Michael were fine. 10 years together, finally close to happiness. Then she loses her baby, loses the ability to have kids. Julia's a walking disaster. With Julia's scandals out, both the Windsors and Percy's stock prices plummeted. Julia's B&O prodigy glow vanished. Brands dropped her over her ruined image, and some even sued for damages to their reputations. Michael's status in the industry tanked. His persona crumbled. Fans fled in droves, and he vanished from the public eye. The next I heard of Julia, her mother had shipped her to rehab to protect her. The Windsor family collapsed entirely within a month. And who bought their company? Elliot. But Elliot wasn't forgiving. He remembered the old grudge. Julia's parents were driven to suicide, And even rehab couldn't shield her. Elliot turned his sights on her there. The Perseus too saw their stock crash overnight. I had to track down Michael to get him to sign our divorce papers. He was skeletal, unshaven, lying in our old home, surrounded by cigarette butts and empty bottles. I set the papers down in front of him. Michael grabbed my wrist, his voice wobbly with hurt. Mary. Even you don't want me anymore? I pulled free, my tone flat, sighing. He tossed the pen like a tantrum-throwing child. I won't. I watched him quietly. Michael let out a bitter laugh. I's read you rail laughing at me, too, are you? A fool played by Julia this whole time, too blind to see who really loved me. He wrapped his arms around my waist, pressing his face to my scarred abdomen, his voice soft with tenderness. Mary, did it hurt? Apologies tumbled out, thick with sobs. I'm sorry, Mary. I'm sorry. I said nothing. Michael erupted, yelling. Why won't you answer? Why don't you hate me? Why won't you curse me? Mary. I can't stand you looking at me like this, like I don't matter. He slid to the floor, curled up, gasping through tears. I stood. Looks like we can't talk today. I'll leave the papers on the table. Sign them, and I'll come pick them up. Michael's gaze locked onto my ankle as I walked to the door. I paused, turning back. Our eyes meet, this, red and hopeful. I smiled. Michael, I don't hate you. I don't blame you. I just want to leave. I want a new life, my own. I closed the door. Behind it, Michael's wailing burst forth. When I looked up, James stood there, his expression wounded, like a kicked puppy. His voice reeked of jealousy. I was so scared you'd turn back. For the first time, I smiled, a real smile. James, I said, my life only moves forward, never back.